He looked me straight in the eye and said, "The greatest gift you could give us is if you disappeared from our family." I can still feel the air leave my chest when I heard it. Imagine standing at your own daughter's wedding, your heart bursting with pride, only to realize you're the one person nobody wants in the picture. That single sentence didn't just break me, it hollowed me out. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me this: where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I want to know how far stories like mine can travel, because pain speaks every language. My name is Margaret, and I never thought the happiest day of my daughter's life would become the loneliest day of mine. The ballroom shimmered with golden light, laughter floated through the air, and everyone seemed so alive. Everyone except me. I stood in the corner, holding a small box wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a pearl bracelet I'd saved for months to buy, a simple token of love from a mother to her only child. But as Daniel's cold words sank in, I understood something terrifying. Love doesn't always earn you a place. Sometimes it pushes you out. And that night, I walked away. Before all of this, my world was small but full. Mornings smelled like fresh coffee and warm bread. My daughter Emily would sit across from me at the kitchen table, her hair still messy from sleep, laughing at something silly on her phone. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that always felt like enough. After my husband passed away, Emily became my reason to wake up every day. We learned to survive together, through tears and tight budgets, through quiet dinners where we'd talk about everything and nothing. She was my pride, my best friend, my mirror. I used to tell her, when the world turns cold, remember, you always have a home here. And she'd smile, that same shy smile she had as a child, when she told me she'd met someone. Daniel. I saw that sparkle in her eyes again, the kind that had been missing for years. I didn't know much about him, just that he came from a wealthier family and had a confidence that filled every room. Still, I wanted to believe he'd love her the way she deserved. Those days before him were simple, our laughter echoing through the house, our little traditions, our closeness. I thought we were unbreakable. But love, I've learned, doesn't always break in loud ways. Sometimes it starts with distance. A missed call here, a shorter visit there. And soon, I'd see the first crack, the first sign that the world I'd built around love was beginning to crumble. The first time I met Daniel, he smiled so wide I almost believed he was genuine. He carried flowers, called me Mrs. Harlow, and thanked me for raising such a wonderful woman. His words sounded perfect, rehearsed, too polished for a man his age. But Emily looked at him like he hung the stars, so I swallowed my unease. At first, I told myself he was just nervous around me. But then came the small comments, the ones wrapped in charm but dipped in poison. "You still live here alone?" he asked once, glancing around my modest kitchen. "It must be hard keeping up with the bills." I laughed awkwardly, pretending not to hear the condescension. He'd jokingly correct Emily in front of me. Tiny things like how she folded napkins or forgot to say thank you properly. When I tried to help with wedding planning, he brushed me off, gently but firmly. "You've done enough, Margaret. Let us handle the rest." The way he said enough made it sound like a burden. Emily started calling less. Our coffee mornings turned into quick check-ins. Her voice always hurried. "Daniel's been so busy lately," she'd say, as if her life had suddenly fallen under his schedule. I noticed how she looked at him for approval before she spoke, how she laughed less freely. Still, I kept telling myself, love makes people change. Maybe I was being sensitive. Maybe this was just part of growing up, of letting go. But one night, when I overheard him whisper something about boundaries and needing space from family, I realized the truth. Daniel wasn't just taking my daughter's hand, he was quietly pulling her away from me. Looking back, I can see Daniel's intentions so clearly now, though at the time, I was blind to them. He wasn't building a family, he was building control. Everything about him was calculated, from the way he spoke to the way he smiled. He wanted to shape Emily into a reflection of himself, polished, quiet, obedient. He came from money, from a family that believed appearances were everything. When I first visited his parents' home, I noticed how his mother's eyes scanned me, my dress, my hands, my shoes, before offering a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. I didn't fit their version of perfection. I was the widow from a small town who worked double shifts to raise her daughter. I was a reminder that Emily came from ordinary roots, and that was something Daniel wanted to erase. When he found out I couldn't afford an expensive wedding gift, his demeanor changed overnight. The charm faded, replaced by thinly veiled irritation. He told Emily that I was overstepping, that my constant involvement was making things stressful. Emily started defending him, saying I was being emotional, that Daniel was just trying to help. Behind every smile he showed the world, there was quiet resentment. I was a threat, not because I did anything wrong, but because I saw him for who he truly was. So when he told me to disappear, it wasn't about me embarrassing him, it was about power. He wanted the stage all to himself, with Emily standing silently beside him. And in that moment, as painful as it was, I realized my daughter wasn't choosing me anymore. After the wedding, I vanished quietly, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to stay without breaking. Emily and Daniel moved into a new house, one I'd never been invited to. At first, I told myself they were just settling in, that they needed space. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the silence grew louder than any argument could. I'd text her sometimes, just small things. How are you, sweetheart? Or, I saw your favorite flowers today. Most messages went unread. On her birthday, I sent a card and a little pendant engraved with her initials. It came back, unopened, marked "Return to Sender." That small envelope sat on my table for days. I couldn't throw it away. Nights became the hardest. I'd scroll through her social media just to catch glimpses, a photo from a dinner, her smile surrounded by people I didn't know. She looked happy, but I could see it in her eyes, that small flicker of distance, that quiet sadness only a mother notices. I tried to fill my days with distractions, gardening, volunteering at the library, baking for the neighbors, but everything I did circled back to her. Every empty chair, every unreturned call reminded me that I'd become a ghost in my own child's life. People talk about losing loved ones to death. They don't talk about losing them to manipulation, to a slow erasure where one day you wake up and your child lives as if you never existed. And just when I thought she'd forgotten me completely, the phone rang. Months passed in a quiet agony, and I began to believe that silence had become my punishment. Then one evening, my phone rang. Emily's name flashed across the screen, and my heart froze. I hesitated, fingers trembling, wondering if I should even answer. But I did. Her voice was barely audible, trembling, fragile. "Mom, I don't know who else to call," she whispered. The words cut deeper than any insult Daniel had ever thrown my way. She told me that Daniel had lost his job, and with that, his carefully constructed mask began to crumble. The man who had smiled so perfectly, the man who had told me to disappear, was revealing the truth of his character behind closed doors, controlling, harsh, unrelenting. Emily admitted she'd been isolated, kept away from friends, from family, even from her mother. Every attempt to reach me was monitored. She sounded trapped, suffocating under the weight of his manipulation. And yet, she pleaded with me not to come. Daniel didn't know she'd called, and one wrong move could make everything worse. That night, I lay awake, thinking of her, my daughter, who was supposed to be starting her life with love and freedom, now caught in a cage of someone else's making. I felt helpless, furious, and more heartbroken than I had ever been. Then came another call that would shatter the last remnants of my patience. From the hospital, Emily had been admitted after a domestic accident. My stomach sank, my hands shook, and I realized that staying silent was no longer just painful, it had become dangerous. I had disappeared once for peace, but this time, silence could cost her everything. I walked into the hospital room and froze for a moment, taking in the sight of my daughter lying pale and fragile under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her hair was messy, her blouse torn slightly at the sleeve, and I could see the bruises beneath the fabric. Emily tried to smile when she saw me, but it was thin, almost apologetic, as if she felt ashamed to let me see her like this. Daniel hovered just outside the room, pacing, pretending to be concerned, but there was something in his eyes, the arrogance that always hid beneath the surface, that made my blood boil. For months, he had tried to erase me, to convince Emily that her mother was a burden, that I was someone to be sidelined, and now, seeing the damage he had caused, I realized I had been far too patient. I stayed calm. I let the nurses check on Emily, let her rest, all while I silently started planning. Quietly, I collected evidence, messages, photos, recordings of his threats. Witnesses who had seen his controlling behavior. I reached out to a friend at a local women's shelter, who had guided me through the steps to protect Emily legally and emotionally. I was building a case, not with fury, but with precision. Weeks later, at a family gathering hosted by Daniel's parents, I arrived unannounced. Calmly, I handed Emily the phone and played the recordings, showed the messages, presented the proof. One by one, the carefully constructed walls Daniel had built around himself began to crumble. His perfect image, the one he had shown the world, shattered in silence, in disbelief, and in shame. He had told me to disappear, thinking my absence would secure his control. But he never imagined that when I returned, it would be as the storm that exposed everything he tried to hide. And in that quiet, tension-filled room, I realized the power of standing your ground, even after being pushed to the edge. The aftermath was quiet, but undeniable. Daniel's world, the carefully curated life he had built on control and manipulation, began to unravel. His arrogance couldn't withstand exposure, and his reputation, once polished and admired, crumbled almost overnight. Emily finally felt the freedom she had been denied for so long. She left him, filing for divorce, and stepped back into the life she had almost forgotten she deserved, a life where love wasn't conditional, where she wasn't silenced or controlled. I helped her rebuild, slowly and gently, like piecing together a fragile vase that had been shattered. We spent evenings baking together again, sharing stories, and laughing in ways that had been stolen from us. She began to shine again, cautiously at first, but fully eventually, with her own voice, reclaiming the space Daniel had tried to monopolize. I never gloated, never reminded him of the storm I had become. My revenge wasn't in humiliation or anger, it was in peace, in restoration, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the person who tried to erase me had only reinforced the strength and resilience of the family he tried to break. Months later, Daniel attempted to contact Emily. She ignored him. She had found a life without fear, a life where she could love freely, surrounded by people who truly cared for her. And I was there, steady, watching my daughter thrive, knowing that the greatest gift I could give her wasn't wealth or jewels, but presence, guidance, and unwavering support. He wanted me gone, thought my absence would silence me, but my silence had been strategic, and my return, full, unwavering, and deliberate, became the very thing that brought justice to the family he tried to destroy. In the end, he never saw the real gift coming. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that disappearing isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's survival. There are people in life who will try to erase you, control you, or make you feel like your love is a burden. And when that happens, you have a choice: stay and let yourself be consumed, or step back, regroup, and find the strength to return on your own terms. I want anyone watching this to understand something crucial. Your presence matters. Your love matters. And if someone tells you that you're the problem, that you're too much, or that you should disappear, don't believe them. Protect yourself, protect your peace, but never stop being the person you are. I disappeared once because I was hurt, but I came back stronger, wiser, and unshakable. My daughter came home, not just to me, but to the truth she had almost forgotten. I became the reason her world regained balance, the reason she could finally breathe freely. So, remember this: those who try to erase you are often the ones who fear the power of your presence. Stand firm, speak your truth, and never let anyone convince you that your love is a burden. You are your own greatest gift.